Emily Carter was about to marry a man she thought she knew better than anyone, but in the back of her mind, a single question burned. What if the man I'm marrying isn't who he says he is? Her heart thudded loudly in her chest as she looked at her reflection in the full-length mirror. The lace on her wedding gown shimmered in the golden light, and the veil fell gently down her back. It was the picture-perfect image of a dream wedding, the one she had imagined since she was a little girl. Today, she was supposed to be the happiest woman alive, stepping into a future full of love and promises. But the knot in her stomach had tightened with each passing moment. The venue, a sprawling, luxurious ranch on the outskirts of Dallas, was a grand affair, every detail meticulously planned. The sky above was clear, the evening air crisp with the scent of wildflowers, and champagne flowed like rivers as guests marveled at the flower arrangements, peonies, roses, and lilies in soft blush tones. Yet, Emily felt none of it. The glamour, the joy, the elation, it all seemed distant now. Mia, Emily's best friend and maid of honor, stood beside her, nervously fixing the final pin in Emily's updo. "You look stunning, Em," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Daniel is one lucky man." Emily smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "I hope so," she whispered, almost as if she were trying to convince herself. Daniel Harris had swept Emily off her feet 2 years ago. Handsome, charming, successful, everything she had dreamed of. From the moment they met at a charity gala, their connection had been instant. Daniel had a way of making her feel like the center of his universe. But as much as she had tried to ignore it, there had always been something off. Little moments when Daniel's polished exterior cracked, revealing a shadow she couldn't quite define. He avoided questions about his past, his history, brushing them off with a smile, a joke, or the common refrain, "My life started the day I met you." Emily had accepted his words as romantic. After all, didn't everyone have a past they didn't want to talk about? But now, standing here in her wedding dress, the doubts had festered. The whispers in her head grew louder, but she silenced them. "Emily, it's time." Her mother's voice broke through her thoughts. Emily turned, and her mother, misty-eyed and beaming with pride, looked her over. "You're going to make the most beautiful bride." Emily nodded, taking a deep breath, and followed Mia out of the suite. The soft hum of the string quartet filled the air as she made her way down the aisle. Her father waited at the end of it, holding out his arm with a proud smile. "Are you ready, sweetheart?" he asked. "I think so," Emily replied, her voice betraying a tremor. Her gaze fell on Daniel at the altar. He was immaculate in his tailored tuxedo, looking every bit the part of the perfect groom. His dark hair was combed neatly, and his piercing blue eyes were locked on her. For a fleeting moment, Emily's doubts seemed to evaporate. The music swelled, and as she took her first step down the aisle, a deep sense of unease gripped her. The crowd stood to their feet, beaming at her. Her heart raced to their feet, beaming at her. Her heart raced, not from nerves, but from the weight of the decision she was making. She was committing her life to a man she barely knew. When she reached Daniel, his hands enveloped hers, warm and steady. "You're breathtaking," he whispered, his voice so low only she could hear. Emily smiled, but as she tightened her grip on his hand, a sickening feeling stirred in the pit of her stomach. The officiant began the ceremony, his voice deep and reassuring, but Emily's attention drifted. She scanned the crowd, and something caught her eye. Empty chairs, where Daniel had promised there would be guests. His closest friends from college, his former business partners. None of them had arrived. Why hadn't anyone shown up? Where were they? A cold sense of dread washed over Emily as the officiant repeated the question, "Do you, Emily Carter, take Daniel Harris to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Emily opened her mouth to respond, but before she could speak, a staff member quietly approached Mia, handing her a note. Mia's brow furrowed, but she quickly slipped it to Emily's father, who passed it along to her. The ink on the note seemed to burn her hands as she unfolded it. You don't know who you're marrying. Check his past before it's too late. Emily's heart slammed into her chest. Her thoughts spiraled, her vision blurring. She glanced up at Daniel, who was still smiling, oblivious to the storm inside her. The officiant asked the question again, but Emily's voice faltered. Her world tilted on its axis. Was this a joke? Or was there a dark secret about Daniel she had never seen? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful stories of survival and resilience. Emily stood frozen, the note clenched tightly in her trembling hand. Her breath came in shallow gasps as she tucked it into the pocket of her gown, her gaze never leaving Daniel. He stood there, smiling, unaware of the chaos inside her. The officiant asked the question once more, and Emily finally managed to whisper, I do. The applause echoed in her ears, but it felt distant, hollow. Daniel leaned in to kiss her, but her mind was elsewhere, filled with questions, doubts, and fear. Who had sent that note? What had Daniel been hiding? The reception was a blur of fair reception and fairy laughter. The grand venue was adorned with fairy lights, and guests toasted champagne. But Emily's mind refused to quiet. Every moment felt like an eternity as Daniel guided her through the crowd. Her eyes darted around, searching for the man who had slipped the note into her hands. Where was he? Then she saw him, standing near the back, partly hidden behind a column. He was tall, dressed in a simple suit, his face unreadable. When their eyes met, he quickly looked away. "Who's that?" Emily asked, her voice tight. Daniel followed her gaze, his expression unreadable. "Probably a guest of your parents," he said. But there was a flicker of something in his eyes, something that made Emily's stomach twist. As the night wore on, Emily's unease grew. The mysterious man had disappeared, and she couldn't find him again. Still, her thoughts kept returning to the note and the chilling feeling that Daniel was hiding something dark. The truth was slipping through her fingers. She excused herself, determined to get answers. Finding Daniel talking to one of his old friends, she gently touched his arm. "We need to talk," she said quietly. Daniel looked at her, confused but nodded. They stepped outside into the cool night air. The stars above shimmered, but Emily felt none of their serenity. "Is there something about your past you haven't told me?" she asked, her voice steady, though her heart was racing. Daniel's expression hardened. "What are you talking about, Emily?" His voice was cold. "That's in the past. It doesn't matter anymore." But Emily wasn't buying it. She handed him the note. "Then explain this." His eyes narrowed as he read the note, but instead of answering, he snapped, "It's just a prank. People love to ruin a good day. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful stories of survival and resilience." "Daniel," Emily pressed, "is there anything I should know? Anything you've kept from me?" His face twisted with frustration, and he stepped closer, his voice rising. "Stop. You're making this worse than it is." By the time Emily discovered the truth, the world she had built with Daniel had shattered. In his car, she found the folder, documents that revealed a man she didn't recognize, court orders, restraining orders, allegations of fraud, assault. Emily's breath caught as she read the files. Daniel had been hiding a criminal past, one he had concealed beneath a facade of charm and perfection. Suddenly, the love she thought she had felt for him became a distant memory. He wasn't the man she thought she was marrying. He was a stranger. "Emily, what are you doing?" Daniel's voice cut through her thoughts. Apparently, she turned to find him standing behind her, his face contorted with rage. "What is all this, Daniel?" she demanded. What haven't you told me? He advanced toward her, his hands raised as if to calm her. It's over. This is my past. It's nothing. No, Daniel, it's not nothing. You've been lying to me, she shouted, her voice breaking. This is who you really are. His jaw clenched, and he took a step back, eyes burning with anger. I did what I had to do. You don't get it. 1 year later, Emily stood in a community garden she had helped create, a sanctuary for survivors of betrayal, abuse, and lies. As she planted a sunflower, its golden petals reaching toward the sun, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace. She had survived the storm, and though the scars remained, they were a testament to her strength. Mia stood beside her, a coffee cup in hand. You've come so far, Em, she said softly. Emily smiled, her heart light. I have, and I'm not looking back. As they stood together, Emily felt a renewed sense of hope for the future. She had escaped the web of lies, and now she was building her own life, one step at a time. What do you think about Emily's journey? Would you have the courage to start over like she did? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful stories of survival and resilience.